Well, good morning. This is Pastor Allen. Welcome you back again to our Facebook page and YouTube page. I would like to say to all the mothers, Happy Mother's Day today. I hope it'll be a really happy day for you, a blessed day. I've been thinking a great deal about the things that's been happening to the United States in the last 10, 12 weeks with this coronavirus and about all the other things that have been entwined with it, like the loss of jobs, the amount of suffering that's taking place, not only physically, but emotionally and psychologically. And I wondered how this would fit in with a prophetic interpretation of the scriptures. And I want to share a thought with you this morning about a dress rehearsal. Of course, a dress rehearsal is when you're going to put on some sort of performance, a play, or something like that. And you do a dress rehearsal to see if, make sure everybody knows their parts, make sure things run smoothly. If there's anything that's wrong, then you can fix it in the dress rehearsal, and then during the actual performance, maybe those things will not come back up. I was thinking about Matthew chapter 24 and Matthew 25 especially. This was Jesus' last major discourse before the cross, and it's called the Olivet Discourse. And he and the disciples had been over at Herod's temple in Jerusalem, a magnificent, beautiful structure, and they had been looking at it, and they had beautiful large stones that were cut that were just tons and tons and tons of a beautiful white stone, and they had been looking at those. And in Matthew chapter 24, and I can't read 24 and 25 and read all the scriptures within our time constraints, but I want to read just a little bit of the scriptures. It says, Jesus went out of the temple. It doesn't say the temple, that's what it means. And departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said, you see all these things, you see this beautiful, magnificent structure? I tell you the truth, there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, and they said, Lord, tell us. And there were three things they asked him for. They tell us, when shall these things be? When will the temple be destroyed? When will the stones be thrown off of one another? And what shall be the sign of thy coming? Verse number 2. In other words, when you come back again, what are going to be the signs of your second coming? And number 3, what is the signs of the end of the age, the end of the world? Jesus said and answered them, he said, take heed that no person deceive you. Many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, I am the anointed one, I am the Messiah. And they will deceive many. We've already had a lot of this to take place. There's a lot of people that have said, you know, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and I'm the one that you need to follow, and you don't need to worry about this or that. You need to follow me. And of course, they've deceived a lot of people down through the ages, and will continue to do so until Jesus comes. And Jesus said in verse number 6, you shall hear wars and rumors of wars, but see that you not be troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. We know what a famine is. We know what earthquake is. The word pestilence, I looked that up in the Greek word study, and it actually is another word that can be translated as a plague. And if you've been listening to the news media, you've heard different individuals in leadership say that this coronavirus is a plague. And certainly it is a plague. We've had several major plagues in history. If you'll remember, in the Black Plague, the Black Death that devastated Europe in the 1300s, it was 1347 to 1351 is the major impact of that plague. They say up to 2/3 of Europe population could have died during that plague. The most recent one, other than the one we're experiencing now, was the Spanish flu of 1918, 1919. The low estimate is that 75 million people died. The high estimate is that 150 million people died. But it was a plague. And certainly what we're experiencing now is a plague. So it says that in the last days there'll be kingdom against kingdom, there'll be famines and pestilences, earthquakes in a lot of different places, and all these things have been happening. And then it said, and all these are the beginning of sorrows. If you'll look at that very closely, if you'll get you a good word study or look at several other different translations, what it's really telling us, it's like the birth pains of an expectant mother. When it begins to come time for the baby to be born, the mother will begin to experience pains. The closer the birth day comes, the closer the pains will be to one another, and the more intense they will become. So when we start looking at the signs of the end of the world, the signs of the second coming, then what we look at is the intensity of these pains. They're getting greater and they're getting closer together. Certainly what we've experienced as a nation and as a world for the last, I'm going to say 2 months, has certainly been intense. Many people have sheltered in place for so long they're getting stir crazy. People want to get out and they want to get about. There's a very interesting article this past week that I read in the Christian Index. It was written by one of the authors. His name was Mike Griffin. And Mike was talking about how churches are being treated by a different standard by governments in certain places than are other organizations and other businesses. And he feels like they're, as I do, that they're being discriminated against. He gave 3 or 4 examples. I'm not going to give you all the things that he said, but I'm going to point out a couple of things that he said. The governor of Illinois passed an executive order that allowed churches to meet, but no more than 10 people. Mike Griffin in the article talked about one church, Elim, E-L-I-M church, that has buildings that are over 40,000 square feet. Now that's an acre of land is approximately 46,000 square feet, so this is almost an acre of ground. They have an auditorium that seats over 1,300 people, but yet the governor of Illinois said no, you can't have but 10 people to meet, and then they have to do social distancing. Well, the pastor of this church said, well, we can do social distancing and we can still have a lot more than 10 people. But this individual said, no, you can't do that. One of the real dictatorial things that she did was this governor said that until the phase 5, they have 5 phases of getting back to so-called normal. And in stage 5, a church can start meeting again and in large numbers. Well, they asked, how long is it going to be? It'll be over a year. So that means that churches can't meet for over a year. Well, they're letting other organizations and other businesses that far exceeds 10 people meeting, and they're already allowing them. And there have been some lawsuits. The thing will work its way through the courts, and we'll see what the courts say. He said in Kansas that churches are not allowed to meet. In Tennessee, the churches were actually forbidden to hold drive-in meetings. In Mississippi, where they had these drive-in church meetings, this is where the church people would come in their cars and sit in the parking lot. They would not get out of their cars. They would keep their windows rolled up. They would tune their radio to a certain station, normally an FM station, and from within the church, a transmitter would broadcast short distances, normally around 1,500 to 2,000 feet, and you could listen to the sermon and you could listen to the music and these kind of things. And the governor of Tennessee said, no, we're not going to let you do that. And in Mississippi, they actually sent out the law enforcement, state law enforcement personnel, and they gave out tickets and fines to people who disobeyed the court order, even though they were in their cars, even though they were practicing social distancing. And Mike Griffin said this is a taking away of our constitutional rights. That the Constitution, Article number 1, guarantees the right of assembly of churches. and certainly it is. I thought a great deal about how easily this dress rehearsal has been, how people have yielded up their rights. And I thought, why would we not protest? Why would we do it? Well, first of all, we're a peace-loving people. And secondly of all, we understand that hopefully this is going to be for a short period of time, and that what we want to do is protect our people. But there comes a time when society is beginning to come back together, and yet there's still certain individuals and certain groups in this nation do not want churches to come back. I thought about in the end of the age, this is prophecy that's found in the book of Revelation, it's found in the book of Daniel, it's found in the book of Isaiah, it's found in many of the New Testament writings, that there's going to come a world leader, he's called an Antichrist, that will control the world. And the world will do what he says. Why? First of all, out of fear. Secondly of all, they'll do it because he's in total control. If you don't do it, then you will be maybe imprisoned, maybe worse, even put to death. Is this a sign? Is this a dress rehearsal that's coming? I believe that it probably is. I believe that you're looking at the Bible says in the book of Ephesians that we do not fight against flesh and blood, but we fight against evil. It's in high places, spiritual wickedness that's around us. And that this is part of their dress rehearsal to see how they can work the kinks out to be able to take control of all of mankind. Well, that's all we're going to have time for today. The Lord willing, we'll be back with you again soon. God bless.